Hello, my name is Linda McAnany, and welcome to my show. My guest today is one of the busiest people in Jefferson City. She's not only the owner of a very successful retail store, Carrie's Hallmark, but she's also the mayor of Jefferson City. Carrie Tergin, Mayor, thank you for taking the time to join us, and I know you're busy. We've already talked about your schedule today, so it's been crazy. One of the things that you and I talked about a few weeks ago was the fact that when you were elected, you set 4 goals for yourself that would improve, in your mind, it would improve the city and its growth. The first, and we're going to talk about those goals because they're wonderful goals. The first goal, and this isn't particularly in order of priorities, but the first goal was prison redevelopment. Why is that so important?
You know, the prison that we have here in Jefferson City, the historic prison, is really an asset to our community. It's an amazing tourist attraction. They had almost 26,000 visitors last year to tour the prison.
Wow.
And they're on target to exceed those numbers this year. And I don't think people realize the extent of what we have. And I think it's important as a community to look at our assets, and we need to look at that for the asset that it really is. We have this historic place. It's 180 years old. It was once the oldest prison west of the Mississippi. There's a lot of significant history there, and the way it anchors the downtown and the east side and overlooks the river, the potential there is endless. And you think about all these years, who had the best view of our beautiful river? It was the prisoners. And now that they're gone, we need to enjoy the view. We need to enjoy the river. We need to enjoy the historic prison. And so it's definitely a very important goal of mine to further redevelopment of that site.
Now, what's the current status? Are we in negotiation, or are we in partnership with the state? What's the current status?
Really both of those things.
Okay.
We currently have negotiations with the state. It is state-owned property, so we've been really building a great relationship with the state of Missouri and Office of Administration, and recently the council unanimously passed a resolution that supported going into a long-term lease with the state for a part of that site, and we're hoping to see some development happen there. The city can certainly help facilitate that, which is why we wanted the long-term lease option, and that will open the door to other possibilities too. So it's kind of the first step into seeing things happen. And recently we had the prison concert on July 2nd. We had our first ever event, Inside the Walls is what they called it, and that was a fun concert, kind of tying in with the Salute to America July 4th weekend activities. And we had looked at how can we make that event bigger and better. It's already the best place in all of Missouri to enjoy the 4th of July holiday. But we added something to it by incorporating the prison and a concert. We brought in Travis Tritt, and he had a show inside the prison walls. It was rainy, but incredible. Everybody who went had a great
turnout,
time.
didn't you?
Yes, we had around 2,000 people.
And it was raining
Yes.
a good portion of that day.
Yes, and people came from all over, and the local people enjoyed it, and it was the first time they could enjoy an adult beverage that was served. They could purchase, you know, beer and wine from some of our local Missouri local companies, which was great, and have an enjoyable evening and be inside the prison. And to be inside the walls, you imagine the 3 historic buildings on all 3 sides of you, and then on the 4th side was this stage with Travis Tritt, and he was the perfect person for our first time ever event. And the fact that we had such a good turnout for a first time event is really, it's hard to do, but we did it. And even just having an event there, getting permission from the state, was something we've been working towards for a long time. When I got on stage before Travis came on and introduced him, I said, to get this to happen, it felt like we were climbing a mountain, but actually it felt like we were climbing a prison wall with all of the barbed wire on top, because it was the feeling of everybody saying, you can't do that, it's state property. I mean, people told us every reason why they thought we would not have this happen. And instead, we worked with the state. Wonderful relationship with the state, with the governor. I'm so thankful to Governor Nixon and him allowing the city of Jefferson to use the site. We worked with the county, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They were instrumental in this process. and community leaders and companies and businesses that signed on and said, we believe in this site, we believe in what the historic prison has to offer, and let's do something there. And so as people were leaving that night, they said, when's the next one? What are you going to do next?
That's great to hear. And you needed all those partners. Everyone to be a partner in that endeavor because they all brought something to the table.
Exactly. You're so right. We couldn't have done it without partnerships. And it wasn't about me as the mayor saying, I want to do this. It was about a group of us, citizens, saying, let's do something at the historic prison site that would be fun and entertaining and build on the tourist attraction that it already is. And we're already looking now for the next one and hopefully can build on it. People say, well, let's do several of these events. Now, hopefully on down the road we will. We need to get some infrastructure improvements there before we can really utilize the site.
What kind of changes are needed?
For one, things like running water, having the water there,
Okay.
Also electricity. For this particular event, we had to bring in some generators, but there's the need for lighting and electrical work.
A lot of infrastructure, normal things that
Yes.
most facilities would have.
Sure.
But those have probably been either too old or they've been turned off.
Both. They have been. The facility being 180 years old, it's been vacant for about 11 years.
I was wondering how long it had been since they moved out.
And even though they offer very successful tours, because that site is as it was, I mean, it's how they were when they left it that day, really. So it's an amazing tour, but there are things that we need in order to hold events in the upper yard area like we did for the concert. And they can still offer the tours and offer the historic nature of the property, but then add things like these fun events as well.
That's great. That's great. I know you were excited afterwards because not only in the media were you talking about it, you and I talked about it. It was just outstanding. You said we created an opportunity.
We did, and we brought a big name, a well-known Grammy Award-winning artist, Travis Tritt. That's something we really don't often do here in Jefferson City, but we are the state capital. We have a lot of potential, and I really want to see us grow on that. So I'm all about saying, what can we do to make things happen? When people tell us, well, you can't do this because, I'll say, well, if this is what the community wants, let's find a way. And we are
Let's make
strong.
it happen. That's right.
Yes, together.
Okay. Second is Capitol Avenue revitalization.
Yes.
What is the city able to do to kickstart that effort right now?
Well, the good news is we have a lot of options that are coming forward. People know that the whole area is very important to our history, the stretch from the state capitol building to the prison, that whole area of Capitol Avenue. Beautiful homes, historic homes. A lot of people have renovated and revitalized the area,
Right.
but unfortunately at the same time there are countless properties that have fallen into complete disrepair. The city has tried to maintain the properties. A lot of them are privately owned, so we have very few options that are available. So the City Council recently authorized the Housing Authority to work together with the city and perform a blight study. So that has been completed.
Okay.
The results show that basically the area does have significant blight. And so now the next step is the city and Housing Authority to work together to say, what are our options now? We know the area is blighted. What does that mean? What can we do as a city, as a community?
When you say blighted, what in layman's terms, what does that mean?
Essentially, a lot of those properties are in significant code violations.
Okay.
Looking at the area and the infrastructure, it's dilapidated. It's unsafe. It's a danger to those who may come in contact, who may try to get in there. If people are trying to live in homes that really should not be lived in, boarded up, it can be a danger to, if somebody sets fire to it, or if a fire would occur, it's a danger to our public safety individuals. It's a danger to anyone around it. Perhaps collapsing roofs, collapsing stairwells, things that really are bad, porches falling in. Things that should not be happening. So we have code enforcement, and the city is trying their best to keep up with that, but it's such a significant number and so many in a confined location in Capitol Avenue. And just the fact that these buildings are 80 to 100 years old, a lot of them, so naturally they're deteriorating. And when the property owner allows them to fall in such disrepair, it really becomes a blighted area. And the next step when you have blight is crime. The crime rates are higher in that area, and it causes the whole area to decline. And this is an area within a block of our beautiful state capitol.
Right.
It should never decline. It should be moving up. It should be a place of revitalization and regrowth, not a place that's allowed to be blighted.
And this is also an area where some people have invested in. They've made improvements to their buildings, whether they're business buildings or homes or whatever. And so that just multiplies the problem, does it not?
It does. We're seeing a lot of significant revitalization. People are taking an interest in that area, moving homes and businesses there, and really bringing these homes back to some beautiful architecture. And it's a shame then when you see right next door boarded up windows and within the proximity of our state capitol.
Right. Well, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other two goals that our mayor has set. Stay with us, we'll be right back, but I also want to encourage you, if you want to read more about our city or learn more about the existence of what's happening in our city, all you need to do is log on to their website. It's www.jeffersoncitymo.gov, and I encourage you to do that. It's a lot of good information. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Every child is curious.
George, look what I found.
Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning.
That's a periscope.
It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader.
Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading.
Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. As I mentioned, my guest today is Mayor Carrie Tergin, and she's bringing us up to date with what's happening in our city along with your goals. Mayor, riverfront access, as you mentioned earlier, is a very important part of what our city has to offer. And that's been something that the Parks and Recreation agency or agenda, it's been on their agenda for many years. How important is it to have that access to our community? I think we all know the answer, but I want to reconfirm it. And what will it take to make it happen?
Sure. We are a river city, and sometimes we forget about that because we don't really have access to the river, unfortunately. Now we're seeing more now on the north side of the river. There's a lot of
NORAD
access,
yes.
And the Wilson Serenity Point,
yes.
And the Master Gardeners have an incredible garden there. And if you haven't been to that side of the river lately, definitely check it out. There's some great activities for the kids. There's some beautiful gardens there that are definitely worth making a stop to see.
Right.
And you can access that from our side of the river with the pedestrian bike bridge that you can walk across the Missouri River Bridge now, thanks to a lot of businesses and private donors that really saw the value in getting people across the bridge. It connects into the Katy Trail. when we look at our city and where we're situated, we are very central, very close proximity to the Katy Trail. That trail is used by a lot of people that come into our city to enjoy what we have to offer. And I don't know if we realize, unless you connect to the Katy Trail, you don't realize just how much of an impact that has on our community. So that's wonderful. Now we need to look at our side of the river as well. We are a river city. I know when I mentioned some of my other goals, I like to look at what assets we already have as a community. What is it that we were given when Jefferson City became into existence? What is it about us? Well, some things today that really define Jefferson City are we're the only city in the country that has these three things. We're the only city with a state capitol, with a river, and a retired prison. The only city that has those three things, a capitol, river, and a retired prison.
I would have gotten 2 out of 3.
See, 2 out of 3. So, but people don't realize we are the only one that uniquely has all three things. And I think it's important that we really utilize those 3 assets.
Absolutely.
Other cities don't have one of those, or 2, or 3. So we've already talked about earlier the historic prison, 26,000 visitors. We recently had a very successful event. That prison ties in with the river very directly. When we talk about redeveloping the prison, there's an area on the master plan that even calls for a marina. So you think someday we could connect there.
Yes.
Now this is future talking.
Sure, I understand.
But if you think about now, where are we at with riverfront development? I know it's been talked about for years, but thanks to a generous local donor, we're very close to reaching our goal of funding a walkway over the railroad tracks to the riverfront. The railroad tracks have been our obstacle. How do we get around, above, below? How do we get around the railroad tracks? So we found a way, we've had engineers working on it, that they can start at the Capitol at the Veterans Memorial.
Okay.
And essentially start there, so it'd be a veterans walk, if you will, from the Veterans Memorial over the railroad tracks and then down to the Jefferson City Riverfront Park in what's commonly called Adrian's Island.
Right.
So we're looking at it being a very park-like setting, benches and trails, walking trails, bike trails, the access bridge.
A very enjoyable but subtle opportunity. Would you say it that way?
Yes, just enjoying the river, a very passive
Solitude
park.
and the quietness and enjoying it that way.
Yes.
Well, I know that study was funded by Mrs. DeLong, I believe,
yes.
and thank goodness, because we keep coming up very close to finding an opportunity, but there's always that one stumbling block. So hopefully this will be an opportunity for us to go forward.
I think it will, and when people have a lot of misconceptions about the area, thinking it's underwater, it typically is not underwater. And I think just the walkway itself will be a destination. Think of how many people come to our state capitol. This park has the potential to be one of the most visible parks, not only in Jefferson City, but in the entire state, when you think about having the assets that we do.
Sure. What about a civic center? I know that that's also on your radar.
Absolutely. In the past, we looked at conference center. That was widely discussed for years. And it's time to adapt that a little more into the current needs of the community. Conference space is good, but civic space is better. And
now, what's the difference? Tell me what, by your definition, is the difference?
Sure. I think a little more community space, a little more expo space.
Okay.
Expo space has been a component that is becoming more and more popular and in demand and a requirement as people hold their different events. In the past, the model was more for conference space, but now I think the need should be for more flexible space, such as civic space, expo space. We have a lodging tax that's been collected now, and there's an opportunity there for us to start some more discussions, look at the past, where we've been, what worked, what didn't work with those discussions and everything that got us to this point. And it's time now again for the City Council to start discussion. The best thing is to start with the hoteliers and the meeting planners and see what their needs are, identify the needs, and find a way to use them, because we are a capital city, we're central, we're a sports town. Whatever we incorporate has to realize how many people come here for sports. And is there a way that we can incorporate all of that with our central location, knowing that we have funds available to build a structure, and it's time to really start those discussions and get serious about making it happen.
Is location important?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe pretty firmly it ought to be within the core of our city. When I say core, near the Capitol, within a certain radius of the state capitol, because that's what we are. We are the capital city. People want to come here, whether they're going to the Capitol or whether they're here for state government or an association. They want to see the unique nature of what our city is. The Capitol, the river, the historic prison, Capitol Avenue, all these things that we talked about, that is our draw. That's our asset. For those of us that live here, we're proud of it. For those that come visit, that's what they want to see, and we want to showcase that. And we have a great city, the east side, the west side, the south side, everywhere. Our community is amazing. But within the core, our core needs to be strong. That's where people want to come visit, and we're hoping that that would be a location that we could find that would make sense to have a civic center.
And we have, or no, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there real estate in mind, perhaps,
Yes.
to put this location? Okay.
I feel certain there are a couple
Okay.
options within the core
Okay.
that could be looked at.
And this isn't the time to talk about that, but I just wanted to make sure that there were, because that's so important. You know, you have to start out with the location.
Sure.
As being, but you know, as you were talking, I was thinking, you're so right with regards to, we have bike trails, we have the Katy trails, we have our own park trails within the city that people can utilize, either by walking, running, biking, you name it. And of course, that's also an asset for people coming into our community,
Yes.
whether they're athletic or they're just coming in to visit or whatever. So
We do our greenway system throughout the entire city, regardless of what side of town or where you're at. It will connect with our greenway trail, and people utilize that on a daily basis. We're very fortunate in Jefferson City to have such a strong greenway trail opportunity, and that ties in to the Katy Trail. If you start there, you can go to Riverside Park, you can end up going across the river, and then you can end up on the Katy Trail too. So we have all these connections that we're very fortunate to have.
you know, it's interesting because I think as we talk, many times people see segments of our community based upon their network, their neighborhood. But we really have to stop and think about all the wonderful attributes that we have already.
You're right.
So it's just a matter of reminding people that they're there. We can continue to grow them, and that's really what the mayor is talking about. We can continue to grow with those opportunities, and you know, you've identified 4 wonderful opportunities.
Absolutely.
Anything else on your radar at this point that you would want to mention?
Those are the big ones, but also so people know how accessible we are at City Hall. The first thing I did when I was elected is I decided the mayor's office is the people's office. I put a sign up on the door, first thing that says the people's office, because we need to be accessible. What are the community's ideas? What would they like to see? I'm very much accessible on social media because I want to share what we're doing. For example, last night after a city council meeting, I posted about 7 photos of all these different things that happen. In fact, you're in one of them because you are a very big community supporter.
She is wonderful Facebook, I'm telling you.
And I love getting the story out because that way people feel like they know what's going on in Jefferson City.
Well, we have, as you can tell, a very energetic, enthusiastic, and bright mayor, and we're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all the work you do. And again, if you have questions or you want to learn more about what's going on in our community through the city website, www.jeffersoncitymo.gov. I encourage you to take a look at it. And Mayor, thank you. God bless you for everything you're doing.
God bless you too.
Look forward to our next visit.
Yes.
And that's it for tonight. We look forward to seeing you next time. Good night and God bless.